TV.
Welcome back. Well, Susan Wright's testimony in her 2004 murder trial is making her husband out to be an absolute monster, always angry, physically abusive, a drug addict. The list just goes on and on. But the question is, did the jury believe her stories about him? Now, back with us to take a look beneath the surface of Susan's words is body language expert Patti Wood. All right, Patti, you and I were talking during the break about the way she pauses. Folks, you got to see this and hear what Patti has to say, because I'm sure maybe you're catching it as well. She's pausing at different times as she gives her answers. That's not abnormal, but we're talking about when she pauses and why. Let's take a look at Susan describing Jeff arguing about money.
There had been so much yelling and arguing in the house lately. I wanted to take the kids to church. I thought it would be a nice sort of peaceful break.
All right, that's not that's not exactly what I was looking for. But what we were getting at, what we were really getting at though, and I want to address this with you, is when she is answering certain questions about whether she's angry or whether it's almost like you get the sense that they were about to have an argument about something. You're saying that she pauses and then she talks about what he did.
Exactly. When the lawyer, when she finds the pot in part of the testimony, when she's talking about his trips, when she's talking about the clothing, the lawyer will ask her, did you talk to him about this? Did you confront him about this? Right. There will always be a pause. And then she will say, well, Jeff wouldn't let me, or Jeff didn't do this. She goes into this little act every single time. She doesn't give a direct answer. There's always this pause where she has to put in the dig to Jeff, the little planned dig to Jeff. And because, I chart, when I do an analysis of cases, I have a chart. I note every single time she does this in response to a question. So it's quite startling. So that tape that we just saw, where for the very first time she talks about there was yelling and arguing in the house, that reveals what I'm thinking is really what happened. There was yelling back and forth. I think she wasn't afraid of him. I think she did often confront him. I think that there was a lot of screaming and yelling arguments between the two of them.
Okay, and so these pauses, they're not just her maybe considering, well, let me answer this so I correctly address the question.
If it happened
it's more
once or twice, but in the charting, I counted 12 in just 1 hour of testimony.
Okay, all right. Now, here's the other thing. There is so much disturbing testimony here, and some of the threats that she receives, I found them personally troubling. But when I see her testify, it sets up a bit of a different construct. Let's take a look at Susan's face while she's talking about New Year's Eve. And again, people, I want you to focus on her face. Take a look.
Now, did Jeff drink during that day?
Yes, that day he had 3 bottles of champagne.
Now, what did you make of that, Patti?
I think she made that up.
Why? Just because of her face, why?
Yeah, the timing of the tell. First of all, it's really one of the only times she talks about any numbers specifically.
Wait, can I back up for just a second? You said the timing of the tell. What did you mean?
She presses her lips together after she makes the statement.
And that is her tell or her facial indication for what?
Right, that she's lying. That what just came out of her mouth, she suppressed the truth and told a lie. After she held on to the truth, she presses the truth in. So
if we're trying to look behind Susan's words, and I want to do this for our viewers as well, they should be looking for those moments where she purses her lips.
After she speaks. That's not, somebody that's being honest, that is not a natural facial movement after you speak. Okay. It's very distinctive in deceit. The other thing, I know this sounds odd.
Go ahead.
People tend to lie in multiples and odd numbers. So she said 3 bottles of champagne.
Really?
But also even the way she hits the tonality where she strikes on the words doesn't sound like the truth to me.
I know there are times, even when we're doing what we do, sometimes when we're trying to stress something, we'll say, and I even do it naturally, it's just, you can't believe what happened. And sometimes you do it as a way to make the point.
Right. Yes.
Is that what she's doing here?
I think it's a rehearsed little bit of information that she's telling rather than an actual event that she's recalling.
What about the butcher knife in the drawer?
That's so odd on so many levels. She doesn't get fully afraid of the knife till when she stands up, she's great. She's very emotionally charged. But when she's talking about her son with the beads and then there being a knife in the drawer, Don't you find it interesting that there was no emotional response or fear for her child, that there was a knife in a drawer, that her son would go play in that drawer?
Yeah.
Instead, she wants to emphasize vocally her anger that she had to leave the knife there because Jeff made me leave the knife there.
That is very interesting.
It's very
because
odd.
I think
really odd.
a lot of us would expect the concern always to be with the children. And by the way, when we look at the case now, the concern is she reacted, she snapped once Jeff hit her child. So her snapping incident, she says, is based on what happened to her child. But what you're seeing is a lot of what involves children or could involve children doesn't get a response out of it.
She doesn't show the fear about her children. And all the pieces of tape, all that testimony, that's the one that's very striking is the knife. Where is her fear or concern? She doesn't even vocalize it. She doesn't say anything about that either. It's all about Jeff. It's interesting.
All right, we're going to keep watching this. Patty's going to stick with us. And folks, Susan Wright says her husband's abuse of their son Bradley, that's the reason, that's the big reason why she killed him. On the night she snapped, she said that Jeff called their son bad names, punched him in the head. So we're asking you, do you think Susan Wright's testimony helped or hurt her case? Give us a call.